Let's move on to the transfer window, which has now closed. And the big star of the transfer window, of course, is going to Paris Saint-Germain. That's Neymar. 222 million euros they paid for him from Barcelona. I mean, what can you say about that? That is a huge amount of money, Saruhan. How can they make that back?
You know, money is relative, John. Qatar Sports Investment owns PSG, and they have about 250, 260 billion dollars in assets. So to them, this is kind of pocket change, right? But it certainly changed the rules of the game. Jose Mourinho said that. He said that Neymar actually is worth that. I understand they're giving that money, but what is going to happen now is who's coming next. So the bar has been moved. It was Paul Pogba last year, which was about 100 million or so euros. Now that went to 220 million. That's a huge increase, and that is going to change the rules of the game. But again, this is market economics. If you have the money, of course you have to abide by UEFA rules with financial fair play regulations. As long as you do that, you can purchase any player you want given this amount of money.
Dan, in Madrid, he's never said anything, of course, because he's too tactful for that. But it is generally thought that Neymar went to Paris because he was, despite excellent play at Barcelona, kind of overshadowed by Lionel Messi, for example. And he kind of went because he knew he'd be a big star there. What do they say in Barcelona about this?
Well, Lionel Messi, as you say, I mean, it's very difficult. These players, they want to become the best in the world. They want to win the Ballon d'Or. They want to be number one. And it's very difficult for Neymar to be number one if he's not number one necessarily at his own club. So if Barcelona to win the Champions League, then Lionel Messi will, no doubt, most seasons be the one who scores more goals, will set up more goals, and will be seen as the star player. So that, there's no doubt, would allow Neymar this move, the potential of taking Paris Saint-Germain perhaps to a final of the Champions League, to win the Champions League, and then he himself would be able to legitimately say he's the best player in the world. And that, as you say, it hasn't necessarily been official in terms of interviews as to whether that is the case, but that has been widely speculated upon. Well, the problem now for Barcelona is how do you replace somebody with that kind of draw, that kind of impact that Neymar brought to the game, given what he has already achieved here at Barcelona.
Right, and Don Jun in Beijing, one of the things that I think the French want to do is to try and improve the standing of not only Paris Saint-Germain, but also their league, to make it more popular internationally in the way that the EPL is. Do you think that the transfer of Neymar to Paris Saint-Germain is of interest to Chinese football fans? Would it be enough to, you know, strike up a real sort of fever pitch interest in the French league now, maybe for the first time? What do you think?
I'm not sure about that. I think even if PSG will be successful in reaching out and attracting more Chinese fans, significantly more than before, it would be up to the PSG to go as far enough as possible into the European Champions League instead of to, you know, look to the French league overall to have a bigger fan base, which will take a much longer time.
You know, I'm just noticing here that Paulinho, who's used to play for Guangzhou, has also just transferred for around 40 million euros to Barcelona. Barcelona once again comes into the conversation. What do you think about that and the move to try and end any overseas players playing in China before the end of the decade?
I think it has just demonstrated a very rare case. You know, among the Chinese teams who have been spending very hugely on importing foreign players, Guangzhou Evergrande has been the most avant-garde, I mean, several years ahead of their management, of their mindset of buying and selling. And it's the very first case for China to sell, although a foreign player, back to a European league for a very high price. And that will, you know, very insightful and very helpful for the Chinese money spenders and funders to have a better idea of how to do this business all around instead of just spending all the time.
Of course, you know, John, in London, Saruhan here on the studio at the top of the show was talking about the importance of marketing. And one of the things that the EPL teams are doing, especially the big four, is going overseas. I mean, we've just had two major EPL teams playing in China. So Chinese football fans get to meet them and see them and get close to them. Do you think that's important?
I think that's a key point. And this year we had Arsenal and Chelsea. Last year we had Manchester United and Manchester City. And Manchester United alone claim to have 106 million fans in China. So it's a fantastic fan base for them. And, you know, they're going to continue to try and develop that and at least keep that solid base over in China. What I like about China, though, is that they're building for the future. You know, they've got this restriction now on 3 foreign players and trying to focus on putting money into grassroots football. So, you know, I admire what they're doing in the Chinese Super League. I think it's great stuff.
Dongjun, could you just explain to me, how do Chinese football fans enjoy the English Premiership games? What time of day are they generally on, if they're live? And do they go to bars, or do they go to people's homes, or do they watch online?
I think, you know, just maybe 5 or 10 years ago, the overwhelming majority of Chinese fans would tend to watch TV. Most of those foreign leagues were to be relayed, broadcast live for free, of course, with a lot of advertisement. But now, the new generation of fans tend to spend money to buy the annual membership to watch the EPL, you know, for as many games as they want. So I think there is significant changes to the habit of their watching foreign matches. And very luckily, I think the EPL is smart enough. Well, I don't know if it's on purposely arranged or not. Now we have some prime time chances to watch some EPL games from 7:30, 7:40 to all the way through midnight to watch some EPL matches instead of having to wait until after midnight.
Saruhan, they say, don't they, that this is the Chinese century, or at least the Asian century. And what Dongjun is saying seems to back that up regarding football as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, we've seen the Gulf states being involved in this very much, with the UAE getting the Emirates airline in there, that branding, and then Qatar now is spending money like crazy. But yes, China is coming. The reason that we are not seeing that much activity, and I think that was also pointed out, is that we do have and again, I'm going to put my business econ hat on, but we do have a slowdown in China. What Chinese government is trying to do, make sure that this slowdown is not a hard landing, what we call a soft landing. And for that to happen, they have introduced certain policies, one of which is not getting too much or limiting the capital that will leave China to go outside, purchasing real estate or purchasing soccer teams or football teams. So we're seeing that now. What will happen is going to be very interesting after next year. I think these rules and restrictions are going to be lifted, and more Chinese investors will be involved in this business.
Dongjun, come in. I know the President Xi is a big, big football fan, isn't he?
Yes, absolutely. And if you look at his, you know, his memory that when he recalled about his younger age watching foreign teams playing in China, the very first was between Watford and a Chinese side in Beijing and then in Shanghai, which disappointed him so much. But that also helped people to be more familiar with the English side because of the leader's familiarity with an English team. And also, just back to the earlier topic, even if you know, the government is trying to slow down the capital spending outside of China, that doesn't mean any sign of slowing down among the dramatic increase of fans, the number of fans, and their interest in top quality football, as well as their affordability to buy, to watch foreign games.
Yes, that seems to be the big growth area in business, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Fan base is going to grow in China. What I was referring to was the investment by the businesses. There's a limit on that now, and that's because of the capital requirements that the government has introduced. But in terms of the fan base, China is going to grow like wildfire in the next couple of years.
John, the future seems pretty bright for EPL.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's going to get stronger and stronger. And, you know, there's no sign of it diminishing. And you know, people talk about how competitive is the Premier League. You know, it did get a little bit predictable for a few seasons where we saw the same top four, but now we've got a kind of a top six and maybe a top seven, and it's getting a lot more unpredictable at the top.
Well, all of you, thank you very much indeed for a most interesting discussion. Who knew that we could keep half an hour going on just English Premier football? But
it's a beautiful game.
It's a beautiful game, and B, clearly there's a huge fan base out there, and C, clearly it's only going to go on growing. So thank you all very much indeed. Saruhan, John, Dan, and Dongjun in Beijing, who has had a very late night. We thank him very much. And that's it for this edition of The Heat. The conversation continues online. Join us on CGTN America's Facebook page to comment on this and any other show, or chat with us on Twitter at CGTN America. I'm John Terrett in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.